Hey everybody, welcome back to Pushing Pixels. I'm your host Sam Mestis, and today we are going to build this coffee Starbucks ad. Now, I saw a tutorial very similar to this one, but it seemed insanely complicated, and I don't believe anything like this has to be that complicated. And also, I didn't want to use a picture of a coffee cup. I wanted to use a 3D model, and I got this particular coffee cup from pixelsquid.com. And if you're not a member, go check it out. It's really cool. I will put the link in the comment below. All right, but let's get going on this coffee cup. So I gave everybody in my class this to start off with. Let's hide that. We don't need it. And it's basically a coffee cup. And it's got two squares up here, and these are the primary colors we are going to use for this project. And before I get going, I should turn on my keyboard visualizer so you can see what I'm typing. And good for you. And I should turn on Zoom It. There we go. And Zoom It should be working. Awesome. Those are the primary colors. And let's get going. Since I don't need them, I've already saved those colors to my swatch palette. So no big deal there. I don't need those anymore. Let's get going. Turn off the coffee cup. New layer behind the coffee cup. And we're going to call this Clouds. C-L-O-U-D-S. And I'm going to pick my dark red. Did I use my dark red? Let's try it. Yeah, dark red. That crimson. So crimson and black right there. And on that new layer of clouds, we are going to go to Filter, Render, Clouds. And when we do that, we are going to get this as an option. Not too bad. It looks a little creepy. I'm going to scale this up just a little bit, make my document bigger. And Command T, you can see the commands down below here. And I'm just going to scale it up just a little bit, make it a little bit bigger. Awesome. Now sometimes what I do is when I want to tone down clouds is I will put a mask on that layer of my clouds right there, the circled square. And I got my mask selected. And then a lot of times I will go back and reapply clouds to the mask, and it'll help tone that down just a little bit. Turn my black layer back on. But not too bad, right? It's a bit more tame. If I turn it off, you can see sort of the difference. And we'll see how that works out for us when we put our coffee cup on. All right, next thing I want to do, which is something I didn't do it this way in class for a reason, but mostly it was just a dumb idea. All right, so on my background layer, I'm going to pick my light red. All right, so I have my crimson, and now I have that light red we started off with, and I'm going to make the light red my foreground color. And on a new layer, I'm going to put right above our clouds, I'm going to call that highlight. Why not? And I'm going to go to the gradient tool, G, and I'm going to make sure my gradient is selected, my first one, my right there. So it's the red and then the lighter red. You know what? I may darken this red just a bit. I'm going to click, before we get into that, I'm going to click on my dark red palette, and I'm going to make it just a little bit darker, almost as it gets to black, kind of around there. So I got my light red and that new dark red, crimson, whatever you want to call it. All right, back to gradient tool, G. And make sure our gradient is set up. It is. And make sure our gradient is set to radial. It's the second one from the left. Radial gradient is what we want. And we're going to go from the center of our document and drag out. I'm going to hold my shift key, and I'm going to get that deal. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now, I want to see the clouds a little bit underneath, so I'm going to drag my opacity down here just a little bit, just so the clouds kind of start popping through a little bit. You can sort of see that. Whoops. And I'm going to turn my brightness up a little bit. Make sure I'm up. So 75% is good. Maybe a little bit higher, 80%-ish. Somewhere in there, whatever you like. And that works perfect when you put the coffee cup on it. Now it really starts to sort of pop a little bit better. Let me turn that guy off. There we go. All right, so we're going good so far. We got our nice little background, creating a little bit of tension. I need a shadow behind that cup to fall, and we're going to play with how the shadow lines fall a little bit different. So right in front of on top of your coffee cup there, new blank layer, and we'll call this shadow, HDOW. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to hold down my command key next to my space bar, control if you're on PC, and I'm going to click the little picture here where my coffee cup is, and I'm going to get a selection set from that. That's what I want, a nice selection set. Turn that off. And then on my shadow layer, I am going to fill this with black. And if I hit Shift Delete at the same time, the fill dialog comes up, and I'm going to pick black and hit OK. And then I'm going to deselect, Command D, and now I have my shadow, but it is in front of my cup instead of behind it, but we'll fix that now. Before we fix it though, let's flip the shadow upside down on its head. So make sure your shadow layer is selected and hit Command T to get a selection, and then right click inside there and go to flip vertical right there, and it will flip it upside down. Perfect. I'm going to hit return for a second, and I'm going to now drag my shadow layer below my cup so it's behind, so my shadow falls behind there. Awesome. We're going to free transform this shadow one more time, so make sure your shadow layer is selected and hit Command T again and right click on the inside, and let's hit distort. Right click, distort. And I'm going to grab this center handle, and I'm going to drag it to the right a little bit, okay? Then I'm going to grab this one up top here in the center and drag it a little bit to the left. Actually, drag it left and down a little bit, like that. And I don't mind if my shadow falls off the image, that's fine. It's not a big deal. And I will have to get rid of that little nub right there, but we'll deal with that later. Kind of like that. Looks pretty good. I'm going to return, and there is our shadow. Let's keep going. Let's blur that shadow, because shadows aren't really that sharp ever. So let's blur it. Go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'm going to set mine to 10. And you can see it put a nice sort of a fuzzy edge on that, which is perfect. I'm also going to turn the opacity down a little bit, maybe to 75-ish. How about 75? Yeah, let's try that. Now you can sort of see the background through it a little bit, maybe even a little bit more. 65, to taste. We need to get rid of that little thing right there. I'm just going to hit my erase tool, and I'm just going to hand erase that. Perfect. No big deal. All right, so we got our shadow, we got our cup and everything. Everything's looking pretty good. The thing we don't have that we're not seeing, but what I am seeing on my original is, if you look at my original, there's a nice sort of red tint around the cup, and that's sort of the reflective properties of the background that would end up falling on that cup. And honestly, I did that with an inner shadow. All right, so let's do that on this guy. So on your cup layer, that guy, let's double click up here in the gray area on that layer, and we are going to hit Inner Glow. And we're going to use our dark color as our color. All right. And you can already see what it's doing. It's adding this nice little inner glow around the cup. If I turn it off, you can sort of see what's happening. So let's fine tune it. 38 maybe. High. How about 32? How about 35-ish, 36-ish for opacity. Make sure it's on multiply. There's our color. And for size, let's do 175. Let's leave the choke to nothing. 175. And those are really the only two I adjusted, was the opacity 38 and then the size 175. Okay, so that's not too bad. It already adds a nice little deal to that. The other thing I want to do though is I'm going to put a gradient overlay on this. So click on gradient overlay, and you can already see what it's doing for me. Actually, it laid in almost perfectly. So if I turn it off, you can see now how it's helping me out. Readjust focus where the light is falling and things like that, and that is going to work out perfect. Let's see what my settings are for that. I lucked out. So opacity, it's on multiply. It's black to white gradient. It's that guy right there. Okay. Opacity at 67. Scale at 41. And the angle is very important too. It's minus 51, minus 50. And if you want, you can reach in there and sort of fine tune it in the actual image, but I'm going to leave it there. That's not too horrible. All right, we're going pretty good here, everybody. Believe it or not, we're close to done. One of the other things I did in this image, I'm going to start a new layer on top. I sort of hand painted a vignette, a sort of black. Let me pull up my other one. So you can see all this black around it, and I really wanted to shift focus right to the center of the image. So exactly what you're going to look at is what I want you to look at. So on a new blank layer, I'm just going to call this vignette. I don't even know if I spelled that yet. How about that? reset my colors since they're red and gray now. So if I just hit D, it'll reset your colors automatically. And if you hit X, it'll toggle your colors for you. But I want black as my foreground color. And I am going to pick a paintbrush, B. And the brush I'm going to pick is a very soft round brush. The very first one, soft round. And I'm going to turn my opacity, 40 is good. So I got my opacity set to 41. And on that new layer, I'm just going to sort of softly go around this and paint in freehand a little bit of black around the edges and sort of create a vignette. And I'm going to do it a little extra hard where this shadow is. And there you go. Now I've really shifted focus. You're looking at the thing I want you to look at, not the whole crazy image. All right, new layer. Let's put some steamed coffee on this since this coffee's steaming. Let's call this Steam, S-T-E-A-M. And I gave you folks some brushes. Let's make sure our color is white. Foreground color white. X to toggle, so toggle to your foreground color is white. And let's go back to the brushes and find those smoke brushes we used. And I liked the very first one, 1745. And make sure you're painting on your new layer with white. And I'm just going to click once, and I have it at 41, so I'm going to turn it back up to 100%. And there you go, and we'll soften that edge up a little in a minute. So there's one, and I usually picked about two. I don't remember what two I picked exactly. I know I picked that first one. Here, let's just do this guy right here. So whatever you want to do, it's your choice. That's a little bit, that might be a bit much. Maybe something a little bit more subtle. How about this guy? Let's try this guy. Oh, that's perfect. Okay. All right, so there you go. Not too bad. And I'm just going to use the eraser tool real quick and just sort of soften that up a bit. Okay. So it's not so brazen. There we go. And I'm going to turn this down, the opacity down to say, I don't want it too brazen. Maybe 75. That's good. One thing I always do with the smoke elements like this, fire elements, is I sort of reshape them. So I'm going to hit free transform right there and warp. And I'm just going to pull these corners just a little bit, give it some, kind of reshape it the way I want to. I don't really know. I'm just sort of experimenting. There we go. Let's try that. Yeah, I don't mind that. That's fine. Awesome. All right, we have one more thing to do, and that is let's put our little Starbucks logo on our coffee mug so everybody knows we're shopping at Starbucks. And I gave you guys a logo. File open. Where is that logo at? That guy right there. All right, so we got that guy. Let's get rid of this for a second. And we need to get it off the white, and I'm actually just going to use Magic Wand and select all the white. And you have to make sure contiguous is shut off, because if it's on, it won't select inside where the A and the R and blah, blah, blah. You need to select all the white. So make sure contiguous is off. And I have white selected, and I need to invert that selection. Command-Shift-I. And now the Starbucks logo is shifted. And if you hit Command-J, copy via layer, it'll put it on its own layer. And we're going to use that now, since it's separated. I'm going to hold down my Shift and drag it over and bring it into my document. I no longer lead you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And with my Move tool, I'm going to slide it down here. And the final thing I really have to do now is sort of shape it to the shape of this cup. So we're kind of looking down at the cup, so we need to reshape this. And I honestly just used a very slight warp tool, so free transform warp, and I'm just going to pull this down just a little bit, and I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to pull this up a little bit, and that's it. And there's a little white fringing you can see around that. I'm going to go to layer, matting, remove white matte. And there we go. Not too bad. All right, there we go. We have our cool little Starbucks ad. I'm going to put a curves adjustment layer at the very, very top, just so I can help push the whites on this a little bit more. All right, I'm not going to play too hard. I'm not going to play too fast and loose with the whites, but I'm going to just adjust the contrast a little more. And that looks pretty good. All right, there you go, everybody. Super simple. We didn't have to have a ton of adjustment layers. You can accomplish these goals really quick and not have it be that big a deal. Plus, you know, save you time. Save your clients time. All right. that's all I got. Keep photoshopping, keep practicing.